Hi, I'm Daniel Gade, Commissioner of the Virginia Department of Veterans Services and a proud U.S. Army veteran. I'm honored to be asked to be part of this AARP program. Virginia is home to more than 700,000 military veterans, among the highest per capita veterans populations of any state in America, and the home of the highest percentage of women veterans. Virginia is also home to more than 30 major military installations and thousands of active duty service members and their families. Chances are that if you're a veteran, you served at least part of your duty right here in our Commonwealth. Our new governor, Glenn Youngkin, our Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs, Craig Crenshaw, and I are committed to assuring that Virginia continues to be the #1 state for veterans and military retirees. Here at the Virginia Department of Veterans Services, our more than 800 team members, many of whom are veterans themselves, work diligently to serve our veterans and help them access the benefits they earned through their military service. Governor Youngkin promised that when elected, he would work to reduce taxes on military retiree pay, and this legislation has already been introduced in our General Assembly. This administration is committed to continuing and expanding innovative and effective programs here at our agency. These include the Virginia Values Veterans Program, the public-private partnership that has helped over 92,000 servicemen and women find gainful employment in the civilian workforce. Our Virginia Veteran and Family Support Program that supports veterans and their families facing medical, behavioral, and financial issues. We are also expanding our Women Veterans Program to meet their unique challenges and opportunities. Our agency operates 2 state-of-the-art Veterans Care Centers, better known as nursing homes, in Richmond and Roanoke, and 2 new centers are nearing completion in Virginia Beach and Fauquier County. We provide beautiful final resting places at our 3 veteran cemeteries in Amelia, Dublin, and Suffolk, and so much more. The bottom line is that no state is more committed to serving our military veterans than Virginia. Thanks again to AARP for this opportunity to greet you and tell you a little bit about how Virginia cares for our veterans and their military families. May God bless all of you, and may God bless this great nation.
My name is Kate Cerreto, and as Jen mentioned, I'm the AARP Wyoming Volunteer State President. I am delighted to welcome you to tonight's live discussion with the filmmakers of Dear Sirs. I watched it this morning, and I found it a very compelling documentary. It highlights the power of family, the love between the generations, and multi-generational homes and family caregiving. This film truly resonates with military families and veterans caregivers, and I hope it inspires us all to explore those attics and basements so we can uncover some hidden treasures, as Mark and Carrie did. Tonight, we will take just a few minutes to view the trailer from Dear Sirs before diving into the live Q&A with Mark and Carrie, the filmmakers. Hopefully, all of you have seen the film with the link that was shared previously. If you haven't had a chance to view it yet, that link, which we will also drop in the chat, will continue to work for 24 hours. Mark and Carrie have given AARP and all of you permission to watch Dear Sirs free during this special timeframe. They've traveled all over the world hosting film screenings and recently returned from France and are getting ready for a trip to Germany. We're very honored to have them join us tonight. With that, let's take a look at the trailer.
Ladies and gentlemen, you who have not seen it do not know what hell looks like from the top. The trail of the 3rd Army and the 19th Tactical Air Command and the 8th Air Force is marked by more than 40,000 white crosses, 40,000 dead Americans.
To spend every day together and base so much of who you are on this person, and then you realize you know nothing. That's totally crazy.
It started when we were staying here. I found that knife in your grandpa's bed. What is this place where we're staying?
We never talked about what happened. And to see a version of him that I never met, then it becomes real. After finding something like this, you can't just go back to your normal life. You don't need to go overboard, but you would want to know, right?
We both decided we're gonna stop what we're doing. We're gonna stop the trail we're on, and we're gonna do this project.
In June, we moved into his house, and then in January, we went to Germany to retrace his route and tell his story.
There weren't many that came back to the States with us.
You know, we want to know a little bit about you. You have to know everything about me, every minute where I'm at and what I'm doing. I don't know anything about you.
There was a saying about you don't talk about that stuff.
These are the stories we don't learn about. We're fed history. We're told that these are the heroes, therefore that's what's important. But really, what's important are these stories that are so close to us. Those are the stories that often get forgotten. So that's what I'm trying to do. Save one story.
Hey, Mike, remember to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. It is my honor to help facilitate the discussion tonight. My name is Mike DiStelio, and I'm a retired Army veteran. I'm also a volunteer with AARP's Virginia State Office. In addition, I am part of a caregiving team along with my sisters. Together, we juggle the responsibilities to help our 99-year-old father. He too is a World War II veteran, and still at 99, he is able to live independently for the most part in his apartment in Connecticut. It is exciting for me to be part of this event, and it is my privilege to introduce Mark and Carrie Pedri, the award-winning filmmakers of this touching film. Again, I would like to remind everyone to type your questions in the Q&A section, and we will have Mark and Carrie answer as many questions as we can tonight. To get us started, I have a question for Mark.
All right.
How long did it take you to actually comb through everything in your grandfather's home? And did you have any help in trying to sort through everything?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I could answer it by saying 4 years or maybe my entire life. I lived right across the street from my grandpa growing up. So he was obviously a huge part of my life. And I spent a lot of time over here. And, you know, as a kid, you're always kind of looking through grandpa's old stuff. And so I think early on, you know, I was very familiar that he had some treasures in his house, mainly in the form of old tools that he brought home from the mine. But it wasn't until this film that I think we uncovered really kind of the most meaningful thing that he had kept. And that process took us down a rabbit hole that, like I said, it took 4 years from the first minute that I found those records that said which camps he was held at, the letters that he had written, the photos that, you know, he had names of the people that he spent time in the service with. So I think maybe rather than thinking about it as a time commitment, maybe it's more useful to talk about or make more interesting for the audience to kind of hear about the process. But before I get into that, I want to just tell you thanks, Mike, for your service in the armed service, for your service with AARP. And it's really incredible that you have this relationship with your father, who is still, like you said, on his own, but yet you have a pretty significant, you're a big part of his life. I think that's really incredible. And that's something that I was fortunate to have with my grandfather. So anyone that has that, I really can't say enough of take advantage of those relationships. Also want to give a quick thanks to everyone behind the scenes at AARP. This is really incredible for us to be able to connect with everyone tonight. Jen, Janaea, Bo, you guys have really made this event special for us because Silvio, my grandfather, he touched a lot of lives, and those people have since left Wyoming and spread out all over the US. And this is really the first event that we were able to bring those people together in one place virtually. So thank you guys. quick back to the question. Going through his house. It took a long time because you can see I get sidetracked easily. It was very intimidating at first. And I think had the things that he left behind not have resonated with both Carrie and I so much, I don't know that maybe anyone ever would have taken the plunge quite like we did. I mean, we literally left our home and moved into his house and to begin that process. But I think what helped us is we had this goal of really meeting a side of him that I'd never met through the things that he left behind. So we were able to, that guided our process. And I think the hardest thing when you come across an attic or an office is deciding what is meaningful and what is clutter and what, you know, my grandpa would have just thrown out, or what he would have said, no, that's actually, that's my wedding ring. Don't throw that out. So along that journey, I think we learned a lot of lessons. And that's why it did take us a long time, but we were also very careful with how we did go through it, because we were trying to preserve it and tell the story of that experience of going through it. So long-winded answer, but I hope that gets close.
Well, the chat, the question and answer box is heating up. So Carrie, this one's for you. It's from Barry, and he asked, how long were you in Germany? How many days was the bike trip? And who provided the financial support to make the film?
Oh boy, that's a triple trifecta. Okay, so how long we were in Germany? We were there for 6 weeks total, but as the second question indicates, yeah, we weren't biking for 6 weeks straight because we would stop at each of the locations to film. So for anywhere from like a couple of days to a week or so on each of those places. So I would say we should have a count of this. We don't have an exact count of the days, but I would say biking days, probably about 3 weeks, I would say. And on the ride, you know, we'd ride for like 5 days straight and then we'd be like, oh my gosh, we need a break. So then we would, you know, take a break, and you're in Germany. So you look around at all the castles and things. So it wasn't too bad of a place to be biking through. And then the final question about funding. This is a very personal film. So going for big film type grants would be maybe the first step, but because it's such a personal film, we decided to go for more specific grants, so smaller grants, specifically in Wyoming, through the Humanities Council. They really believed in us when we first started out, and we're so grateful. But also the family helped us out to start up and to, you know, give us momentum. And then we also did a successful Kickstarter campaign where we had a lot of people also believe in us and donate through that. And so yeah, it's been a community project from the beginning, from the family to the town to the Kickstarter campaign and everything. So that's sort of in a nutshell how we did it.
Yeah, I want to add just a tiny bit to the financial aspect. Carrie mentioned it was a community-driven project, and we launched this crowdfunding campaign, which is something where you reach out to your friends and family and really the general public with a mission and hopes that they will give you money to complete that. And normally what happens is it all takes place on the internet. So we launched this Kickstarter and people would send some money on the internet. But what happened in our case is people would go down to my dad's work and they would say, I want to give Mark and Carrie $50. How do I get it to him? So he kind of became this middleman, and I think all the money made it to us, but it was just it was really cool to see people come forward and make those contributions, because it really made the difference.
Well, here's a question that piggybacks on just what you said. It's from Jim, and he asks, did you have a support team when you biked across France and Germany, or was it just you two?
You're looking at it. It was just us two, but we're a mighty two, I will say. So part of the logistics of planning the film was, how are we going to carry a film studio on our bikes? So we really rigged those bikes up very sturdily. And there's a small scene in the film where you see Mark's back. What is that part of a bike?
The hub.
The hub breaks.
Yeah, the bearing
because
went
we
out.
had too much weight on it. So yeah, it was just the two of us. But we did meet a lot of people along the way who, in each of the locations, who showed us around the historical sites and things like that. And without them, I will say, the story and the facts wouldn't have been nearly as vivid. They really helped us out there, especially because we showed up on our bikes. We didn't have a car, so you know, the battlefields and stuff that we went through to get from one to the other on a bike, it's pretty far. So our biking would have been probably doubled if we had to bike around all of the locations also. So very grateful to all the people we met.
This one's from an anonymous attendee. Who was the letter addressed, "Dear Sir," sent to, and when was it written?
So yeah, the Dear Sir's letter, that's where we get the title for the film. And that was really the first time that my grandfather was articulating his experience in a way that I guess more of a whole way, other than just, you know, small details. And that letter was written at a time they sent out, the US government sent out a letter to all the veterans of World War II saying, now's like file by December if you want to get any benefits. And this was in the mid-90s. So by this time, you know, my grandfather was in his 70s and he still had yet to claim some of those benefits. So one of my family members sat him down and said, you know, you really should reach out and then try to get some, you know, disability or something. So he wrote this letter, Dear Sirs, to the US government, explaining his a summary of his experience.
This is from Odette. Can you tell us the significance of the knife on the side of the bed?
Oh man.
The knife, I think it was a catalyst for us to dive into this story, because I think what it really represented is I spent so much time with this man. Carrie actually even worked for him when she was in high school. So we both knew him very well. And then, you know, 10 years after his passing, we're staying in his home and we find a knife in his bed. And he did not seem like the type of guy that would have a knife in his bed. And I think it is one of the mysteries that we still have. He didn't really exhibit, you know, any significant signs of PTSD or anything where you would think he would have a knife in his bed, though. You know, he was also had some tricks up his sleeve. So, but you know, he was a tough guy. I think that if something came down to it, he just wanted to make sure that he was able to protect himself if needed. But more than anything, that was the thing that showed us we really need to look into this. And that's when we found all of the records and letters.
Wow. Carrie, this is for you, from Sue. What year did you start filming? How long did it take for the film? And was this done pre-COVID?
That's a great question. So we started researching in the late 2017, and then we started filming in 2018. We started filming in the, like, probably 1% of what we filmed in 2018 made it into the film, because we were just in this house and we didn't know what we would find. So we were just that rapid fire scene where we're digging through, that's part of, you know, we're like, how do we show this overwhelming, you know, we're finding so much all at once and we're so excited. And that's really what happened when we first started filming. We were like, we better get everything because all of it might be important. And we didn't quite have a clear picture of the story. So we filmed a bunch then. And then as we started to understand what the pieces were, what these unknown items were, then we started putting the story together and started filming more carefully, more artistically. And that filming then took place in 2018, 2019. And then the filming for the bike was February 2019, January, February 2019. So what are we going on now? Two and a half years of actual filming, and then the edit took a year. And so Mark just finished the edit last summer, 2021, the final post-production and everything was done. So the film was delivered to us 2021. And then since then we've been film festivals and trying to share it in screenings in person. But we got lucky as far as not having COVID while we were filming, for sure. It did help the edit process though, because we got a little bit of extra time for that.
It extended our deadline about a year.
Yeah.
We have a question from Brian. Was your grandfather buried with military honors, and was he part of the local VFW?
Yes, he was. Yep. And that's one thing I do remember about his funeral, because he didn't share any of the details of his service, and he really didn't identify as a veteran, to us at least. But at his funeral, it was actually the American Legion that came.
Okay.
And that was, I distinctively remember that. And since then, we've gotten more involved with the local post here. And in fact, they hosted the premiere in Rock Springs, which was a great event.
Nice. We have a question from Peggy. Who made the quote? Who's responsible for the quote, "If you've never been to war, you won't"?
I think the quote is, if you've never been to war, then you'll never understand it. And if you have been to war, then you know it's not meant to be understood.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's the quote. So a lot of the writing, that was a huge part of the film for me. And that's another reason why we chose to do it on bicycles, is because I just wanted to have enough time to think about what this experience meant to me and, try to process it. So a lot of the writing came out of the notes we took on that bike ride. And this whole time I was trying to understand what he went through, which was an experience of war. And I think that's where that particular quote came out of, is trying to understand war, and then realizing that, I've never been to war, and I'll never understand it. And those that have gone to war, talking to the veterans that I've talked to, they said, it's not really something that is meant to be understood. So I guess to answer your question, it was a quote that I had written while trying to interview other veterans and make sense of this experience of my grandfather.
Well, this dovetails in with the next question. Emily asked, was there anyone that you met in your journey that was particularly helpful or hostile?
Oh, definitely the first one.
No, I don't know. There are no hostile people. I think, luckily, the whole process has been very, everyone's been encouraging, welcoming, warm, across the board. So that's, I think, been, I don't know if it was luck or what, but we're very grateful for that. But speaking of meeting people, we did specifically like biking across Europe. You draw a few eyes on and we definitely did that. But through the first initial time when we were in Metz, we spoke with Mathieu, who is in the film, and he's sort of a local legend. He understands all the battles that happened there, and he sort of showed us around. And he's like, I think what you're doing is great, and we're going to get you in the newspaper. And then the newspaper came and did a story and put our picture on it, put it on their page, and then the local TV came and did a story on it. And from that, people saw us on and reached out on social media and knew what we looked like. So there's a quick story that I have to tell. It's my favorite. We're biking down the road on our first day, and I'll tell you, it wasn't great the first day. We didn't quite have our rig. We dropped a computer. It was raining. It was not a good first day. But as we're like pedaling, and we also didn't realize that in rural France, there's not much food to be had. So we thought, oh, we'll just stop and get a snack. There were no snacks. So we're pedaling, we're hungry, it's raining. And as we are doing this, there's a man who like pulls up in a car, gets out of the car and is waving his hands at us saying, Mark Petrie, is that you? And it's a complete stranger,
Yeah, never met him.
Stranger. And he said he had seen us on the newspaper, And his sister had called him up because she was driving. She said, "Hey, the Americans are coming. The Americans are coming." So he got in his car, tracked us down, and he welcomed us in and gave us some coffee and showed us around. And
he turns out he had an incredible collection of World War II maps, and I mean, knew the history of that area better than anyone because it was his backyard. In fact, his mother had housed soldiers during the war. So little connections like that led to big openings in the story. And I think that's why, if you're interested in doing this, going to the place will just take it to a new level. You meet people that they're so open to what you're doing, and they're also happy for you to be there, because to them it's a little crazy that you came all the way around the world. So that was a really great moment.
Well, we have a question from Ray. How did you do the aerial shots? Did you have a drone?
We did, yeah. One of the items that we strapped to our bike was a drone. It was a Mavic Pro for anyone that's into technology. It's a smaller drone, but it's still a drone. And it was one of the things that I think day to day, it kind of drove us crazy. And we thought, why did we bring this? But then coming back, it was like, wow, it really gave us, the top-down view, which all of the maps that we used, it has that classic view looking down. So we were able to mimic some of that imagery in the film.
Okay. This is a question from Phil. My father was a POW at Stalag. I can't read that. Looks like Stalag 11B.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Are there any books specifically dealing with POW camps? I've looked many books on World War II, but not to my knowledge, POW camps.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that ties into your previous question about why people are so willing to help us. There's not a lot on the prisoner of war experience in World War II, or really any war. So unfortunately, I don't have any to recommend, but he should maybe send us a message or an email, or leave his email in the chat, or somehow we'll be connected. Maybe not that, because it's not a private chat. But the way that we went about it is, if you get onto eBay and you just start to narrow down your search more and more, for one, what we used a lot in our research were personal diaries that people had published. And one thing, if it wasn't published by an American, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because a lot of the camps consisted of, a lot of different nationalities. So for us in particular, Stalag 10B had a lot of Italian prisoners, and the Italians wrote all about their experience because they were there for much longer. So that would be my biggest advice. But also the reason why I'd like to be connected is because I believe someone that Silvio was captured with ended up in Stalag 11B, but I'd have to verify that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just add a little note on this. Speaking of people publishing their own story, my grandfather's, I think it's his brother, had a very similar account to Silvio's or Mark's grandfather. And he wrote a book about it, and I don't know if he just wrote it for his family. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to get a hold of those and to know where to look, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people wrote it down.
Yeah. And people, that's a good point. So if we could encourage everyone tonight, if you're connected with somebody that may still have a story to tell, help them tell that, even if it's just for your personal, to have. But then also there's a lot of groups on Facebook that go back and forth and share information. And that's where you really get into some good information that is not, on Amazon or anything like that.
We have a question from Karen. Rita mentioned that her father was in Normandy and Central Germany, but he never talked about his service either. She really appreciated the film. Have you met any other families where they have uncovered memorabilia but had no idea that what their family member had experienced?
Yeah, I think so. We've met a lot of great families through this process. Some of them totally unrelated to my grandfather's experience, and others that, we had photos of them with him. And I think one of the most powerful ones is in the film, there was somebody named Dominic Cerreto, and he was the person who went missing in action, and they never found him crossing the Moselle River. And Carrie was able to contact his family. And for them, I guess it was a unique case because they had never known what happened to their uncle. So they really had no photos. They had one photo before he deployed. So reaching out to them, we were able to share some of our photos of Dominic with them. And that was really powerful to show that side of their uncle that they had never met, but also, be able to fill in a gap in their story of where he was and a little piece of his service.
And to that point of reaching out to Dominic's family, if you're finding photos, maybe decluttering or something, and you're finding photos, they often just, all the names are written on there. And if you also have something to cross-reference with that, like a roster of the squad, which is what we had, we could cross-reference and see the last names. And then we just did a quick ancestry, or their military version is called Fold 3. And you can find often somebody related and just reach out and say, hey, I have a photo. And that expands the story very quickly because they have their side and any little bits that they can tell you. And so then you can start to build the story a little bit better. So that's something that really helped early on, for sure.
You have a question. You have a question here, and it's have you had any feedback from family members or of other members of Silvio's battalion?
Yeah, we have. Our family, they were on board from day one, which is why this film happened. I think without their trust, Carrie mentioned the first couple months, we really didn't know what we were doing, how we were going to tell this story. I think at one point we thought maybe we would just do a glorified photo album, and then we kind of fell into the rabbit hole that became this film. And throughout that process, they did not see a single rough draft or anything. So the night of the premiere was the first time that our family saw the film, and they all came out, aunts, uncles, cousins. And I think it was an emotional experience for them because what took me 4 years to experience, they experienced in an hour and a half. But it was the same person on the screen that I was getting to know a little bit more each day. So that was powerful for them. In terms of other families, in particular with this screening, I think just because we've had a wider scope across the country, we've been able to share it with some of the other family members of some of the people in my grandpa's battalion, and just receiving those emails and connecting with them and hearing bits of their story, that's been really incredible. And so far it's been very positive. And we're really grateful to be able to have those connections. And what our goal is to be able to share the film in those communities, ultimately with an in-person screening.
This is a question from Karen. After you researched and journeyed through Europe, which one or two questions you wish your grandfather would still be alive to answer?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I think going into this, I was obsessed with the details, and I wanted to know every gap in the story. And I think now, if I were to ask him a question, I think it would be just more about how he went through this entire experience, and how he was able to maintain and go off and then have a family. And because it's something that I felt was so profound that I'm not sure I would have been able to process it in the same way that he did. And going there to the places during the same time of year with modern equipment, and the freedom of a cell phone and housing and everything. I think physically, just how do you survive? How do you maintain mentally? And so I think it's kind of a general question of just how do you make it through that?
Yeah. As you're speaking, he wasn't my grandfather, but thinking about, when someone's gone and you can't ask them anything anymore, having made this film, having gone through and found all these facts and put together a story about it, you can find the facts, you can find the things that happened if you try hard enough, but you can't find how it felt, and you can't ask those questions. So in general, that's something I would encourage everyone, you know, to ask, well, if you can, if your loved one is willing to talk, you know, just, yeah, kind of what Mark said. How did you do it? How did you feel? How did you feel 30 years later looking back on it? You know, those questions are really, really powerful.
Nice. There's a question here from Tony. Who took the video footage of you two riding along the various paths?
So there's a mix of, we used the drone for some of the aerial footage. That was, if you zoom in, I actually have like the remote control in my hand and we're biking. So those we're taking, and then other times we would set up a tripod sometimes and we would be able to capture that. But otherwise, yeah, it was us switching the camera depending on what we needed on camera.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this one's from a man named David. He's a docent at the Army's National Museum at Fort Belvoir, the new museum. And he thinks it's important that to tell the stories of soldiers. Do you have any plans to collect more stories of veterans?
Yeah, we do. So that's one thing, like from the very beginning, we knew that not only when we were putting Silvio's story together, there were so many attached stories of the people in the pictures and anyone else that was attached to his experience. So we thought from early on, you know, how will we help preserve these stories? So we're working on it, but right now we have a place on our website where you can write in and tell your story, and we're going to be compiling those, and we're going to be working. We're trying to get with the Library of Congress or something to be able to send these in to preserve them, because we're just two people, so we can collect them and put them in a place all together to hand them off. But we would love to work with anyone. So if anyone out there is listening, we've got some stories and we'd love to you know, elevate them somehow. So that's part of our mission as well, for sure.
Well, here's a lead in. That's the lead into the next question. Angela is asking, when will people be able to purchase a copy of the movie for themselves? And she's sure that Rock Springs Historical Museum would love a copy in their collection.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we have a pre-order available now, and ultimately, yeah, you'll be able to have a DVD or digital. You can stream it digitally. That will probably be available maybe 6 months. Really, the focus is we're trying to have. Well, in fact, we just found out that we got a grant to have a screening series in Wyoming over the summer. So we'll have some in-person events there, and that's kind of the focus for the next 6 months. But yes, if you go to our website, there's dearsourcefilm.com/watch, and there's a place where you can sign up to get an email when the DVD is available.
This one is from a gentleman named Cosmo. His uncle was featured in your documentary, and the family really appreciates the historical account, much of which was new to them. Perhaps the most interesting portion of the film was the Battle of Metz and the capture of Silvio and Cosmo. So,
wow, this Cosmo must be named after that Cosmo.
Yeah, that's one of the connections we were mentioning, that we were able to get in touch with them and share the film for this. So we're happy that they were able to see it, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. We found Cosmo Senior's address in this drawer right here, and in the film, that's why we were careful to say, because they got separated at Heppenheim, and Cosmo went into Eastern Germany and Silvio went more into Central Germany. And there's a line that said they would never see each other again. But we didn't want to say they wouldn't talk, because we found this address, and we thought maybe there was a chance that they talked. And I think we're still talking to the family, but I think there was a phone call that happened between them that the family remembers after the war. So things like that are really incredible to hear.
And I'll say we have been searching for Cosmo's family. We just had I don't know what we it just took so long, but that was very encouraging to get a hold of them right before the screening, because the film was done and everything, and we were still searching for them. So we're really grateful to have found them as well. So it goes both ways.
This is from Joe. We know Mark is a film professional, but is Carrie in the film industry as well? I must say that she is a terrific researcher. Well done.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so if you look at my CV, half and half. I actually studied chemistry, and I have a PhD in materials chemistry. But I started early in film doing like scientific consulting for documentaries. And then, being with Mark for, I don't know, 10, 15 years now, sort of, I caught the bug, I suppose. And so I think we've worked on three features and a few other short films. So throughout my, scientific career, I've been working on films as well. So, but I think the research comment is very well appreciated, because that is something I take from my science days. I'm very detail oriented, that's for sure.
I think Carrie's being very humble right now. So her role in this film as producer, I think needs a little bit of explanation. So basically, I came up with this crazy idea, and her job was to make all of these things happen, and every problem that came up, find a solution. And, it's from the physical aspect of we need to survive this trip, to the business side of how much money do we have. You have to pay for music and films. You have to, have all these contracts, and there's so many moving pieces. I think for our friends in the film industry, they can't believe that one person did all that, and that was Carrie behind the scenes, allowing me to really dive in and work with some other incredible artists. The composer wrote all of the music specifically for this film. We worked with a great animator. So meanwhile, while I'm playing in this sandbox, Carrie is really doing some heavy lifting behind the scenes. So she could produce any other film, I think, with her eyes closed. This one was quite the endeavor. I didn't make it easier.
Thanks.
And Odette writes, why did you choose the time frame January, February, knowing it was winter? Why didn't you choose a better time to go?
As we sit freezing in Wyoming right now.
Yeah. One day we'll go there and see the beautiful flowers and all the people having picnics along the river, which crossed our mind. But I think for this film, especially trying to get closer to Silvio's experience, it really only made sense for me to go in the wintertime. I think tonally, I wanted the viewers to feel this cold presence, the loneliness of being there in the wintertime. I think all of that added to why we were there. And also, just from a documentarian perspective, Carrie did a lot of research on, okay, what time of year would he have been in exact places, and how can we line up to really be in that place 74 years to the date? And then compare some things like what temperature would it have been for him versus us, different things like that. And so I think it was something that, had we have known how dark it was going to be, how early it was going to get dark, how cold it was going to be, maybe we would have gone a couple more months, because he was there for a good amount of time. We could have done his April leg, but we chose the January leg.
That's funny. This is Kathy from Canada. What's the most significant thing you learned about yourselves and your grandfather on your documentary journey?
Oh man, Kathy from Canada's got a great question. These are tough. I think, boy, a big takeaway that I think maybe is universal to anyone that goes on this journey is that it's never too late to connect with somebody. Even after they've passed away, the book is never closed. You can still look back and figure out who this person was to you. And for me, I really met a version of my grandpa that I'd never met. And that was a pretty powerful thing. What was the second part of the question?
What'd you learn about yourself?
about myself. I think I learned that I get more excited about things and I jump in. And if I knew what I was jumping into, maybe I wouldn't jump in. So I learned to trust that excitement, because I think had we have known the logistics of this trip, maybe we wouldn't have done it. And thinking about not doing it, that's kind of a horrible thing. So I'm glad that we were hasty and went for it.
Anne asked a question. I know many Europeans speak English, but do either of you speak French or German? And how did you communicate with the locals?
Doing our best. So we, at the time, we knew we had spent a bit of time in Germany before. I was on an internship just, 5 months or so. So I picked up a little bit, but we didn't speak very much. And most people, if you give it a try, they'll just say, thanks for trying, but let's speak English. or if they don't speak English, you do a lot of, I also took sign language in college. So I was, signing a lot of, like, that gets the point across, just expressing yourself and acting things out if people don't speak the language. But you mentioned at the beginning, we're going back to Germany in April. And so I have been trying to learn more German, because we're going to be, showing the film and talking. So I've been brushing up on it. So hopefully I'll do better this time.
Jennifer asks, how many miles a day did you bike, and were you already bikers?
Yes, we're definitely bikers before that. We'd never done something quite like this, especially with all of the gear on the bike. That just kind of weighed us down quite a bit. So our days, depending on the day, was about 20 to 35 miles. I think the longest day was 40, which, if you're a cyclist, those are manageable numbers. But we're pretty proud of it. Our bikes were pretty heavy.
The other thing is that we weren't biking all day. One thing, the days were very, very short, so you didn't get much daylight. And the other thing is we weren't biking all day, because we would stop to film, and then we would get super, super cold. So then we'd bike to get warm, and then we'd stop to eat lunch. And then, so it sort of drug the day. As a cyclist, you think, oh, I'm going to go ride 20 miles in an hour. It's no problem. But in the winter, filming a film, it took longer than we expected. I think our original plan got thrown out the door about day one, when we were like, okay, we probably can't cover as much as we thought. I think we originally had planned 40 minimum per day, and that did not turn out. So we had to adjust.
Well, Jim asked a question. Do you consider the film basically finished as it currently is, or do you plan to expand or revise it further?
Yeah, so the version that everyone saw for this screening, that version is finished, but we're currently working on a few other variations of the film. Ultimately, we want to have a 60-minute version that we could use in an educational context. We have a 6-minute version that we've cut down for a museum exhibition about Italian-American servicemen. So this film is locked, but that's not to say that one of the other versions, we'll be adapting and changing for different audiences. So if someone has some feedback, we're always willing to hear comments and what they responded to, or what maybe they bumped up against.
We have an anonymous question here. What was your favorite part of putting it together? Was it the research, the imagery, the writing, or the final edit?
We're going to have different answers on that.
You go first.
I'll go first. Mine was for sure the research. I was coming directly out of chemistry into this. So it was a very different type of research than I was used to, but I could not get enough. I wanted physically researching this house, digging, finding things, and then taking those things and saying, what is this? You can't Google this stuff. There's, the calendar that's that he kept track of. I tried to, do a Google image search. Nobody could tell me what that was. And just like these questions, they haunted me. So I loved digging into that, reaching out to people. We collaborated with some archival researchers early on, and they helped us with the National Archives and everything. I loved that. And my piece of that was kind of chronologically and spatially putting his story, like the facts together. Like I said, you just put the facts together, but then I hand that off to Mark and he creates an actual story out of it. I just got very excited remembering all that research. I wish I could do it again.
Well, I was very lucky to have such a great partner in that research, because this film was really about filling in the gaps of this story. So having all these pieces that Carrie was able to put in place was huge. I think for me, the most fun, or the most enjoyable was working with the composer, because we were telling a story about somebody that never told their story. So we were dealing a lot with the idea of silence, and what did that silence hold? And working with the composer, I'm a musician as well. So from playing the accordion in the film, and working with him, knowing that you have this tool of music, which you can pick instruments that represented Silvio, an instrument represented his wife, talking about the different themes of the prisoner of war experience, and things that words don't really get to, but with that layer of music, it's just an incredible tool to be able to have somebody that is so invested in the project, like James Kraft, who is the composer, and his wife is a professional violinist. So being able to imagine this and come up with this extra layer to the film, and then go to his house and watch him and his wife record it live, and then seeing that with the images, that was just a really incredible. And we wanted to do it live because so much of the film was, feeling the items, going to the place. So the extra layer of, if there's going to be a violin, we don't want it to be somebody, typing keys on their computer. If we can have the feeling of a real instrument, nice. That fits in with the story. So I just got really excited too.
Janet asks, how did you get access to the historical films and still photos of the servicemen, the battlefields, the trains, and the camps?
All sorts of different places. We started early because we didn't know what we were doing. We'd never researched this before. So we started with the National Archives. They have a digital, it's a catalog. It's not everything they have, but they have digital archives that you can just go on your computer and search up things. So we started with that. And then we, as I mentioned before, we found this great researcher on Instagram, actually. He does footsteps research. You give him, a soldier, and he tries to put together as many pieces as they can. So he actually got the Heppenheim records from Germany for us. And then I don't know why you got this idea, but Mark went on eBay and just looked for, people have boxes of photographs, and some of them are very organized, some of them are very disorganized. So we found somebody who had very organized photos of, I think, just all the battles around Metz in general. And then we had to pick through and kind of figure out which ones were relevant or were actually in this spot. But we were really careful to put archival footage that is accurate of the battles. It's not just random footage that we found. That's actually like from the Battle of Metz exactly. So long story short, it came from a lot of places, and we learned as we were going where to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the memorial in Sandbossel was very helpful too. They have a great library, and they pointed us in the direction of the Imperial War Museum in England, because that camp was liberated by the Welsh Guards. So they were the ones that were taking video footage there. And that was really a big part of the story, because that camp was kind of the most mysterious part of the story. And to find actual footage of it that, really hadn't been used in a film, a long form film like this, we were really grateful to be able to find that. So.
And if whoever's out there is looking, they also have a digital catalog, and they have a lot of film in that catalog too.
Nice. This may be our last question for the evening. How do you think your grandfather would react to the film and the project if he were still living?
He had this saying. So he was very supportive of me playing the accordion. And I played in this band with my uncle, and we'd have these gigs around town. But if we were ever put in the spotlight, say we got our picture taken in the newspaper or something, he would acknowledge it by just saying, you sure caused a lot of commotion. And that was his way of kind of saying, good job. So I think that would be what he would say. He would say we sure caused a lot of commotion with it. But I think what he would mean by that is I think he would be happy that we were able to connect over this part of his life that was complicated and difficult, and maybe this was the only way we would ever be able to connect over it. So I hope that he would be proud.
I think so.
Well, I need to tell you, I thank you for allowing me to be part of this. This was fun. This was exciting. This was great. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
Great research. Great research.
Thank you.
We're happy to be able to share it. And the questions were great. Thanks to everybody that came in tonight. That was really cool. And once again, the staff behind the scenes, that was amazing. Kate and Karen, who I believe you'll see eventually, and AARP Wyoming and Virginia. Such a cool collaboration. Like I said, people are spread out across the US, across the world, and we all came together and were able to connect in a time that we've been away for a while. So hopefully this becomes a familiar feeling.
Well done.
Finally, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Mark and Carrie, for your comments that made the film's experience so much richer. We appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's event. I'd like to give a special shout out to our volunteers who assisted from the planning to the moderating. AARP couldn't do what we do without volunteers. Both AARP state offices in Wyoming and Virginia want to salute our veterans and their families. Thank you for your service. If either office can be of help, please don't hesitate to reach out. And also be sure to visit the film site for some state-specific resources, or check out aarp.org/veterans and the AARP Wyoming and Virginia websites to see a list of all our upcoming events, just like this one. Your feedback is really important to us, so we appreciate you taking a few moments to complete the survey that is available in the chat, and it should also pop up on your screen in a moment. We wish you continued health and safety. Thank you and good night. This concludes our event.
Hello, I'm Joanne Jenkins, Chief Executive Officer of AARP, America's largest membership organization serving people aged 50 and over. With more than 5 million of our 38 million members currently or previously having served in the military, we're on a mission to support veterans and military families. That's why we've created a wide range of free resources, tools, and community programs to help veterans and military families navigate their options and meet challenges head-on. We've developed a job board that directly connects veterans and military spouses to employers wanting to hire them. And we have free resources that provide some military structure to starting a business. We know that when you're a military veteran caregiver, you start younger, care longer, and face many unique challenges. That's why AARP provides a free military caregiving guide containing important and timely information that you truly need. Because military veterans or service members are twice as likely to be a target for fraud, the AARP Fraud Watch Network, in partnership with Operation Protect Veterans, provides free action alerts detailing the latest scams directed at veterans and military families. And through our state offices nationwide, AARP can help you find the right opportunity to give back to your community and fellow veterans. To learn more about these and other resources, visit aarp.org/veterans. Thank you.